Hi, and welcome back to In the Gray Area with REVV Health. I'm Britni,
And I'm Travin.
and today we're diving into something that affects each and every one of us, even if you don't know it.
Yeah, and this is such an important topic because we all the time we say like normal isn't optimal, and we always push people for optimal hormone levels, right? Well, this is kind of the crux of like why we need such optimal levels is because of all these endocrine disruptors floating around.
Yeah, and what's really sad is that we're finding out more and more that this is like even something that's passed down generation after generation. So, like, children these days are coming out of the womb with a toxin level that's through the roof. So they don't even have a fair chance.
That's right. That's right. And so to kind of like help people understand, like when we talk about endocrine disruptors and how they affect hormones, when we think about hormones, most people think about like getting their blood work done and they see like, okay, that's my hormone. Here's my levels, right? Well, that just measures the amount of hormones circulating in your blood. But those hormones can't actually do anything if they can't attach to the receptor and enter the cell and exert their effects and do what they're supposed to do, right? Well, these endocrine disruptors come in and they basically will sit on the receptor and block the hormone from doing its job. So if you think of it like a lock and a key, where the hormone receptor is the lock and the hormone is the key, it has to fit in there to do its job. And it's got these endocrine disruptors sitting on there and not allowing the hormone to attach and do its job.
Yeah, a lot of times I like to tell our patients too, like, if we're doing all the right things, they've changed their diet and exercise too, then we do need to look on a cellular level because a lot of times if you think of it, your cells is like a bucket. It's so full of all these toxins over the year span that they have been alive and so on, that what they're taking can't properly even be absorbed.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, I don't care. Like you can have the cleanest diet, you can eat organic, you can do your like red light therapy or cold plunge or sauna, like whatever fucking biohack you want to do. Like you're still going to have these endocrine disruptors in your body. Like there is no escaping them. They're everywhere. So, instead of like asking ourselves the question, like, how do we avoid them? Which we all should be doing everything to try to live a healthy lifestyle. But the real question is how do we overcome these endocrine disruptors that are in our body, right? And I think the answer is to have sufficient enough hormone levels to basically outcompete these endocrine disruptors at the receptor level.
Yeah, and sometimes that's not even enough. I mean, sometimes you really do have to add in those things for extra added support or detox. And, we are lucky to have found like Quicksilver, which has an amazing product that we see a huge difference even introducing something like that to our patients. And then being able to properly absorb and get those optimal levels, even sometimes without having to go on the much higher doses
Yeah.
necessarily.
Yeah. Like you'd mentioned, like all of this stuff happening in the womb. And it's like, then you come out and you're literally like, you have a lifetime of toxic exposure just living in the world that we live in now. So it's like, you can imagine that building up and causing all this cellular inflammation and all these, things blocking your hormones from doing their job. Like, it's one of the ironic things is like we talk about all the time, like testosterone levels like trending downward, right? Like the levels are being reduced. Okay, so there's like that, but then on top of it, like our actual need for hormones is actually much more than it used to be 30, 40, 50 years ago, just because of all these endocrine disruptors. So it's like a double whammy.
And we see that all the time, obviously, because we talk about how we see younger and younger coming in and having these major issues. But also, even like the older generation, by the time they come in and they have major deficiencies within their hormones, they've got a lot of underlying stuff going on as well that we have to tackle too.
Well, yeah, and that's like one of the reasons why sometimes when we get people to optimal hormone levels and they see things that are like double or even triple what the normal reference range is, and it's because you literally have to have so much of these hormones in your body to outcompete all these endocrine disruptors. Like to get the effects of these hormones, like you have to have high levels of them just to overcome that.
Which is kind of sad in itself because it even shouldn't be considered a high number because it was a normal number not too long ago.
Yeah, yeah. 30 years ago, it was like guys' testosterone levels went up to 1600. And think about this, like guys are walking around with 1600 testosterone levels and not having all this crap in the environment to deal with. So imagine like how much better they felt than the average guy walking around today.
I know. And for us ladies, it's like everything we put on our body, from our shampoo to our conditioner to our body wash and our lotions and our makeup and everything. Like this has been years and years of compounding that's affecting our hormones dramatically.
Yeah. And I think it's important to note that this whole field of like studying the endocrine disruptors, like it's a relatively new field. And so, I mean, they've even said like there's so many endocrine disruptors that they haven't even identified yet, that we don't even know about. So, and it's like when I say that you can't escape it, like you literally can't escape it. Like we all have these in our body. And so it's just recognizing that and then figuring out, okay, like how do I overcome that? Like what can I do to like minimize it, but then understand that I'm still not going to get rid of all of them.
Yeah, and I think all you can really do is your best. Like I know for us personally, like I think it's been about a year now that we kind of like switched out some of our stuff. So one of our patients and good friends, she's a part of Melaleuca, and so we started switching out like our laundry detergents and our dishwashing soaps and like the lotions and all that kind of stuff, which is something anybody and everybody can do. Those little things make a difference. And makeup is sometimes hard for girls too. It's hard to find that natural, clean makeup that actually works. And so, I mean, we're kind of fighting an endless battle to a certain extent. And then there's our foods. We think that if it says organic, that it's clean, and then they've got all these hidden words in their ingredients and stuff.
Yeah, I would just say, like you said, that's right on. I would just say to kind of like pick the low hanging fruit that's easiest. Like it's easy to swap out detergents and soaps and things like that, that you use every single day that accumulate. Like you don't need to go just like totally throw away everything you have and switch it out. But like as you buy new things, you can kind of replace these things with better options and make some better decisions. But like I said, you still have to go outside. You still have to breathe the air and be a part of society. And you're gonna get these things in your system no matter what. That's why we always stress that when addressing your hormones specifically, and just addressing like longevity and wellness and feeling better as you age, like work with someone that really understands hormones, but understands this, because I would probably say that 90+% of doctors either have very little understanding of this or have never even heard of endocrine disruptors at all. And they, most of them definitely don't have any idea how they impact with hormones and why we sometimes need these really optimal levels to combat this kind of stuff. But any doctor that's out here saying, and there's a lot of them, that your testosterone should be in the high normal range, so like let's say 7 to 900, and that's all you need, like there's absolutely no medical evidence to support that, and they really don't know what they're talking about. Like if someone's saying that to you, that should be a red flag. And just because someone might be an expert in their field in this area, or they're a great surgeon over here, it doesn't mean they know shit about hormones.
With that being said, I do think that that goes hand in hand with like women and PCOS too. I think that all of this toxin overload really plays a huge part in that, and especially with the insulin resistance, which kind of like goes into even gut health and stuff. And a lot of times when we see females going into the doctor, they first of all don't even know anything about PCOS. And then on top of it, they're giving them the birth control too, which is just added to all of this instead of even, it's just a Band-Aid basically on the problem. But with all of these endocrine disruptors, it really is playing a huge part with PCOS, and it's affecting most all women. So it's something that I just hope that there's a lot more awareness that starts coming out, where people are aware of just the little things that they can do to make a huge difference in their life.
It everything you said just goes back to the fact of like our healthcare system being such a lab centric focus system rather than like focusing on the symptoms. It's just like check marking a box of, like, okay, this hormone's in range, right? Like that must not be the issue, right? And that's why we say that, if a provider doesn't understand any of this stuff, like that's what they're going to think, because that's what they're taught. It's like, oh, your testosterone's in the normal range, or your thyroid's in the normal range. And so, if someone comes in complaining of, fatigue or trouble sleeping or erectile dysfunction, and then they check their hormones, those are normal. So instead you're going to get, a Viagra for ED. If you're tired and unmotivated, you're going to get an antidepressant. If you can't sleep, you're going to get an Ambien, right? You're going to get all of these Band-Aid treatments instead of like really understanding the root cause and like where this dysfunction is coming from in the first place.
I think that it's really sad too, because the more and more that we're seeing like new patients, it's clearly obvious that even people in our industry have no clue what they're doing.
None.
They don't know how to address thyroid. They're scared of progesterone. They're scared of optimizing testosterone. And that's really the only way that we combat these issues at hand.
Yeah. I don't know if it's part laziness or just not being educated or a combination of both, but it's like what most providers are doing is not adequately treating people. It's checking a box. And then like that patient we had that came in yesterday, that was on 60 milligrams of NP thyroid and was still having all the symptoms, and her provider said, well, no, I'm not going to increase your dose because your TSH is already
But you need it.
Yeah,
but
but
you
you
need
need
it.
it, but I'm not going to because of
Yes.
what this lab says that is irrelevant.
So I think we can all agree that it's like a hormonal war zone that we're living at, and we can either fight back and take control of like our overall health and, even especially with our hormones and get to the optimal levels to feel better to kind of combat that brain fog, PCOS, the lack of motivation, libido.
Yeah. Yeah, and to like be even specific to this episode and what we're talking about, you cannot outrun the endocrine disruptors. Like they are a poison that's in our system, they're in our bodies. And so instead of trying to, focus on eliminating all of them, like let's focus on how to just overcome them in general. And that's optimizing your hormones.
Yeah, I mean it's sad because even our water supply, like we're fighting that too. So
Yeah, all of the birth control and oral contraceptives in the water supply.
yeah, just those little differences every day are going to make a big difference over time. So if this is something that you can relate to and you want some more information, please feel free to reach out to us at rev.health. We'd be happy to help you. Like always, please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next time. Thank you.